Welcome to my show, simply entitled Women Influencers, where you will find inspirational stories of successful women in business. I am Veronica Malolas, TCIM, founder and CEO of the Capstrata Group of Companies, providing commercial real estate development, brokerage, and property management services in the greater Orlando area. Today's guest is Margot Machol, best-selling author of Raising an Entrepreneur and former commissioner of the Federal Trade Commission, an episode that you can't miss. Please don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe below. I welcome your comments and please share with someone who can benefit from this podcast. Hello, Margot. How are you today?
I'm great, Veronica. How are you?
I am good. It's so hot and humid in Florida, and you are in Utah. So tell me a little bit about the weather over there.
I have to tell you, it's perfect.
Ah, I am so jealous. Summer here is just brutal. But anyway, I'm so glad that you're here today. Thank you so much for gracing our show and for telling your story. So if you don't mind, I want to just jump right in and
Great.
ask you about your story and basically how everything impacted you to where you got to where you are today. So tell us.
Um, so I spent, the last 20 years doing these things in international development, and I had a bunch of big political jobs. I was chief of staff of the Council of Economic Advisors, and I was an FTC commissioner, and on blah, blah, blah.
Wow.
So anyhow, that's kind of completely irrelevant to what I'm doing now. Um, so my older son, Elliot, started an organization called Summit or Summit Series in April of 2008. And it was conferences of young entrepreneurs.
Oh.
I started going to these events and I'd never met anybody like these kids. And I was so curious how they turned out the way they did. And I'd ask them, like, how did you end up like taking on so much risk and working around the clock so single-mindedly to achieve your goal? And they all said the same thing to me. They all said, I had someone who believed in me,
Mm.
someone who told me I could do anything I put my mind to, anything I worked hard enough at. Usually it was a family member. Even more usually it was their mom.
Mm.
Not always, but most of the time. And I just kept talking about this. And the kids said, oh, you have to write a book. And I said, I can't write a book. And they said, no, you have to write a book. I said, I can't write a book. They said, you have to write a book. I said, okay, I'll write a book. So
Well, hold on a second. So that was back in 2008 when the world collapsed.
that's when he started it. Yeah.
Oh, that's so awesome. And yet you have this group of people, young people, who actually attended this conference wanting to start something. I think that's amazing.
So he actually, the first one he did in April of 2008, he wasn't trying to start a conference. He just wanted to meet young entrepreneurs and see how they did it because he really wanted to be an entrepreneur. And he didn't think he was cool enough for them to talk to him. And so he cold called 18 of them and invited them for a weekend in Utah.
Oh,
And and anyhow, the most amazing young people, they were all under 30. They were all just getting started. It was Sam Altman from OpenAI. It was
wow.
Blake Mycoskie from Tom's Shoes.
Oh,
I mean, all
wow.
these, like, but they were just getting started. And it was going to be a one-off. And they had never met anybody like themselves before. And they all said, you have to do this again. And I want to bring 5 friends. And
Oh,
that's what's,
wow.
but it's interesting what you said, because one of the parents of one of the people that he then picked to help him start the next ones were like, you have to cancel this. There's a recession. No one will come. He's like, I'm not canceling.
Great. Well, tell me a little bit more about you writing the book and how you actually came to that decision after you've interviewed so many of these young men and women.
Yeah. So I started interviewing, and Elliot said to me, Mom, just do me a favor. Don't just interview the billionaires. Because first of all, it's going to be all white men. And second of all, that's not what anyone's going to end up being.
Mm.
That's not the goal. The goal is to be able to start something you love and have
Mm.
a life that gives you joy.
Yep.
And so it should be approachable to anybody. And if you can be on your own, you can have 3 employees. I mean, it doesn't, anybody who's starting something, for profit, nonprofit, artist, activist. And so I cast my net really broadly, half men, half women, every race, every religion, every socioeconomic background, small towns, big cities, small families, single moms, divorced families, blended, born overseas, born here. I mean, just you name it.
I love that.
And they were all raised the same.
Wow. Wait a minute. So I have a question for
I
you.
know.
Technical
What?
question.
That's how I was. What?
Oh, wait. So I have a technical question. How did you interview these people? I think Zoom came about during
No,
COVID.
no, no.
That's
No,
way
it wasn't.
later.
No, I mean, I know them all. I mean, just because
Ah,
I'd go to these summit events and I'd say, "Can I interview you?"
wow.
And then
That's
sometimes we just didn't have time then, and they'd say, "Well, just call me when we get back." So it wasn't hard for me. I could have interviewed 300 more.
that's amazing. And how many did you end up interviewing?
This is like 80 people in here, 80
Wow.
different families.
I love that. So you interviewed them, and what specifically were you asking them that actually gave content for your book?
Yeah, so I had no idea what I was going to discover. And I just said, like, how were you raised? And then I'd interview them and I'd try to, write it down and put it into it like, oh, they said it was because they learned to compete. Oh, they said it was because they had a mentor. Oh, they said it was because they were raised to be compassionate. I mean, and I started getting these things. And then every time I talked to somebody, I'd put them in these different categories. And I discovered pretty much that they were all raised the same.
Ah,
And which just blew my mind. And every single one of them had in common that they all had a passion outside of school when they were growing up. And in every case, their parents supported the passion.
wow.
Sometimes it took a big gulp. And but eventually the parents all said, "We love that you found something that gives you joy. We love that you're working so hard at it, and we're here for you."
This was about when they discovered they wanted to be an entrepreneur is when they have support because I
No,
think about
no.
parents who drive their kids to baseball practice or basketball practice or even dance practice, and that's pretty common middle school to high school. But entrepreneurship I think is just so unique to be entering when you're a young person. So tell me a little bit about what that and how you discovered what actually happened to these young people.
So very few of these people were actually selling things in high school. They weren't like entrepreneurs in high school. What happened was they had a passion that they chose, not that their parents chose, that they chose.
Mm,
As they chose it, they worked really hard at it. And because they were working really hard at it, they were getting really good at it. And they were
mm,
failing. And they were realizing that when they failed, they could pivot, they could pick themselves back up, they could try a new technique, and they could start over. And they realized that they could succeed when they failed. They got resilient. They learned about grit and determination, and they gained all of these skills that they needed when they became an entrepreneur. My older son, Elliot, his passion was tennis. He played
mm.
tennis 5 hours a day, like 7 days a week. He started at age like 12. Most of the top tennis players in the country at 12, they're already doing regional tournaments. We don't play tennis, wasn't our sport. He just fell in love with it. He kept losing. He'd say, "I know what I did wrong. I'll beat him next time." And he
Yeah.
fought his way up to 35 in the country.
Wow.
And he was honored at the tennis center where he trained for what he had done off the court. And he said, "I didn't really like school. I didn't work that hard at school. Everything I am today is because of tennis.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is where I learned discipline and hard work and resilience and grit and determination and focus." And he said, "That's why I am what I am today."
Right, and it teaches you leadership. It teaches you how to play really great in the sandbox, and being a teammate, and I mean, it's just amazing. Sports just really develops character, and I'm not surprised that your son eventually became an entrepreneur and developed some other passion. And how do you think he kind of pivoted from sports to this project that he like you know just went after?
I mean, he realized he wasn't going to become a professional tennis player. and he wanted to become an entrepreneur. He didn't know how to do it. He did, wanted to meet these young entrepreneurs and ask them. And it just sort of evolved. They said, you should do it again. And I want to bring 5 friends. And it just kind of developed. And, by 2010, he was having, Mark Cuban and John Legend and Bill Clinton and, on and on and on come speak at his events. I mean, it turned out to be a huge deal.
So awesome. And of course, him doing that with the focus on entrepreneurship, he himself was an entrepreneur that I'm sure you guys had supported. So tell me a little bit about that dynamic. I mean, you talk about moms and dads who support their children through the entrepreneurship journey. How did that happen for you and your son?
I mean, and my other son, it's music.
Mm.
And he discovered writing music when he was about 13, and he wrote 300 songs when he was in high school. I
Oh my
mean,
God.
they were just pouring out of him. And again, we don't play tennis, we don't know anything about music. It's only after when I was writing the book, actually, that I looked back and I realized it was actually really great that our kids developed a passion in areas we knew nothing about,
Mm.
because I'm a really helpful person. And if it
Yeah.
was something I'd known anything about, I would have been all over them with advice and suggestions, but I couldn't. All I could do was be, wow, I'm so proud of you for how hard you're working and what you're accomplishing. And yes, of course, I'll, pay to take you to the tournament. Yes, of course, I'll pay you, because, oh, you want piano lessons and drum lessons and voice lessons and dance lessons. Okay, I'm happy to pay for those because I see it's giving you joy, but I wasn't, he was finding his teachers, he was figuring out what he wanted to do. How can you not be excited about your child being so full of joy?
No, absolutely. And it brings such a big smile to my face because, we've all gone through that as children and also as adults, right? As parents, that when your child actually finds something that they love and you support them and it gives you so much joy. The way that my parents, especially my mom, who put us through dance lessons and music lessons and art lessons and everything, she just wanted to make sure that we were well rounded, and of course traveling too. That's so important. So I want to move on and ask you about a challenge that comes to mind that you overcame. What would that be?
Yeah, so it's really funny. So I told you, the kids really wanted me to write a book, and finally I said I wasn't that enthusiastic because I had no idea what I'd find, but I said, okay, I'll write a book, but I'm not going to write a book and just have it sit in my desk drawer. I'm not going to write a book unless I have an agent and a book contract. So, of course, my son got me an agent and that he knew. And he showed me how to write a book proposal, and I got a book contract with McGraw Hill Business. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to get started. And I was about halfway done with my book. And the person who had bought it moved to a non-publishing startup, and it was kicked upstairs to her boss. And I sent him what I had. And he said, you have a lot of good stuff in here, but if you could take all the stuff about moms and put it in one chapter at the end, or better yet, an appendix. So I said to my agent, I'm actually never going to talk to him again because he doesn't want the book I'm writing, and I don't want to write the book he wants.
That's right.
So I don't want to waste his time or my time. Get me my rights back. I'm moving on. So he got me my rights back. I still had to pay him what I would have paid him if we'd, finished the deal. And then the agent said, nobody walks away from a book contract, so we're finished. And at this point, my book was done, and I had no book agent and no book
Oh
contract.
boy. So how did you move on from that?
Oh, I was telling someone and she said, "Oh, you should try my publisher." And I tried them, and that's how I did my first edition. And then like 5 years later, I looked around and I said, all of these kids are doing something different today. I really need to update it. And at that point, I kind of wanted to get my rights back anyhow. So then I did my second edition, and that's what I have today. Raising an Entrepreneur: How to Help Your Children Achieve Their Dreams.
So awesome. I always thought to myself, and as a matter of fact, as I volunteer in a lot of community organizations, the one thing that we all know and realize is that financial literacy is is really not taught anywhere, right?
Right.
It's really taught at the dining table. And I don't know whether you found out if most of these kids, their parents talk to them about money and building a business, because building a business is so hard. I mean, what was that like? I mean, the conversations that you had with these young people and about, was that a common thread that they actually had some kind of money talk at home?
I don't think their parents talked to them about building a business in general, but they talked to them about being fiscally responsible, and they
Mm,
talked to them about um, contributing to others. And so all of these kids, they like they were taught like, if you want something, you have to earn the money for it, and
yeah,
then take that money and put some of it for charity and some of it you save and some of it you can spend on whatever you want. And even the kids who were wealthier, I mean, this was a huge range of income from parents who never went to college and, on up to sort of doctors and lawyers. And even the wealthier kids, their parents never said, you can have money for whatever you want. They're like, if you want something, you have to earn the money for it.
yeah, what a great
Get
lesson,
get
right?
them to appreciate.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What a great lesson. I mean, if you have those types of conversations with your children, it certainly makes an impact on how you start looking at things, and the even impacts your goal setting. And speaking of which is a great segue, if there was one impact that you're most proud of that you influenced, what would that be? I know you had talked about a lot about your book and how the parents can teach their children to be entrepreneurs, but do you have a particular story that you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think parents can teach their children to be entrepreneurs. I don't think
Uh-huh.
parents can make their children entrepreneurs.
I see.
Parents can raise their kids so that they have a more entrepreneurial mindset.
I get it. Yeah.
And then they can be supportive if that's what their kids want to end up doing. But I don't think you can force your kid to be an entrepreneur any more than you can force them to be an orchestra conductor.
Yeah.
Um,
No, fair statement. Yeah.
Right, and because, not everyone wants to take on that much risk and work that hard. And anyhow, so I'm so passionate about this whole topic because there's so many unhappy kids out there. And
Mm,
I so want parents to understand that the path that worked for them didn't doesn't necessarily work anymore. And it could work. You could have a kid who just wants to do really, really well in all his science classes and wants to become a doctor. And that's great. But you may have a very different kind of kid who doesn't like his classes and is unhappy with different kinds of things. And you have to see what gives that child joy, and you have to work with that child and support that child. And so I was giving a talk actually at a summit event, and afterwards a dad came up to me and he said, if I can talk to you, he said, I'm so unhappy. He said, I'm my son is ruining his life and I haven't talked to him in 3 weeks. I'm so upset. And I said, what happened? And he said he started this stupid little company in his dorm room at college, and he just announced he's dropping out of college and he's going to come home and work on this company. And I'm just so upset. I think he's going to ruin his life. And so I called over this guy I know who I know didn't graduate from college and I know he's made a fortune. And I said, Craig, you have a choice of two people to hire. One of them dropped out of college, worked on his company, after a couple years decided the company really wasn't the right thing and wants to work for a successful company and see how companies work. The other one stayed in college, wasn't motivated by anything, didn't have outstanding grades, but somehow graduated. Which one do you want to hire? And Craig, without blinking, said, oh, I want to hire the first one, and so do the other 300 entrepreneurs in the room. And the dad was just like, wow, thank you. And he went home and talked, and he wrote me later and said, thank you, we're friends now. Like, he just
oh,
didn't get it. He wasn't trying to be mean. He thought that the path that worked when he was growing up is the path that works today. He didn't understand it's a different world out there.
no, for sure. We are our parents' children. And sometimes we become parents ourselves and don't realize that we're trying to parent the way that our parents parented us. And it's different. I agree with you for sure. And wow, that's pretty amazing impact right there. Well, if there was one piece of advice that you could give to our audience today, Margot, what would that be?
see what gives your child joy. And don't be so sure that you know. And don't have them so overprogrammed that they never get a chance to figure it out. And if there's something they love, don't say, oh, stop spending so much time singing or dancing or acting or playing tennis or swimming or sewing or building things or fixing things or whatever it is they're doing, and stop wasting your time with that and go study your trigonometry. Because really, like trigonometry, I mean,
How many times have we used trigonometry in the real world?
exactly. And my husband, the thing that's so important to tell these parents is see what gives your child joy, and then tell them how proud you are of how hard they're working in that. And see, let it go. Let's see where it's going. And maybe it will end up being a career, and maybe just like with my younger son is a musician, and my older son doesn't do anything with tennis except play for fun. But, they have to figure it out. Let them fail. Tell them that you understand that failure is how they learn and grow, and that it's just part of the process and you're there for them. And tell them you're proud of them, that they're keeping on trying. And you want to support them as they go on their journey.
Wow, so awesome. Thank you. Thank you. That was really a gem. Thank you for sharing that. So I think we've come to the part of our interview where you get to ask me a question. So go ahead, Margot.
Do you think that you can help your listeners think differently about how they're raising their kids?
Absolutely. First of all, I want to thank you for being here because I am so interested in everything that you've talked about so far, and definitely very interested in buying your book, which, by the way, I'm going to ask you later on. And I'm sure some of my, maybe a lot in my audience wants to get a hold of your book. But as we talked about it earlier, and I kind of alluded to it, we are our parents' children, right? And we were raised a certain way. And I'll tell you, especially Asians are different. Our upbringing is just a little bit different, right? We're told to do certain things like be the best in school, and they like for Filipinos. I mean, a lot of times the parents would say, you should become a nurse or a doctor. I mean, that's a lot of Filipinos who are nurses and
I
doctors.
would say that the Asian parents were the toughest.
Yes, yes, very tough. Yeah. And so when I became a parent, and by the way, I gave birth to two, but we raised five children together, my husband and I kind of passed that on to my children, which I think I don't want to say regret, but I could have been better. And had I had an opportunity to read your book, because now it turns out my my eldest, who is my eldest that I gave birth to, he is an entrepreneur now. And he very bright, he graduated as valedictorian. He went to Georgia Tech to be a mechanical engineer with a minor in robotics. But he's really become an entrepreneur. And and I look back and I think, I could have done a lot better had I known. And, nowadays I'm in awe of the parents because they have all of these resources that it's so easy. You go on the internet, you go YouTube, and you find out. And if you really want to learn, you just kind of become a better parent. And I could have done it differently. And frankly, I could have been a better parent. But I was limited to what I knew from my own parents. And again, I talk about that a lot because that's all I knew. But yes, I do want to buy your book, and I am going to tell everybody who's listening that if they're interested in learning how to really support a child to be an entrepreneur, I mean, I would love to just really promote your book. And the question I'm going to have for you is, if anybody out there wanted to get a hold of your book, tell us how they can get it.
So it's on Amazon. You can also go to my website, which is raisinganentrepreneur.com, and there's a link, and you can go on Amazon. Just make sure you get the second edition. Um, and if I can just really, really quickly, because as I said, all the Asian parents were really the toughest to
Yes.
convince that, their kids were going in this different direction. But I think my very favorite story is John Chu, who's the director who did Wicked. And
Yes.
his parents are immigrants. They have a restaurant in Palo Alto called Chef Chu's, and they definitely, had grand plans for their kids. And John was making movies from the time he was in fourth grade.
Mm.
And his mom came into his room when he was in high school and he was supposed to be asleep. And he was making a little movie on his computer. And his mom said, "Put that nonsense away and go to sleep so you're prepared for school tomorrow and stop wasting your time with this nonsense." And he burst into tears and he said, "You can't make me stop. It's what I want to do for my whole life." And she said, "Go to sleep. We'll talk about it tomorrow." And she picked him up at school the next day. She'd been to the library and she had 10 filmmaking books. And she said, "If you want to do it, be the best."
Oh, that's great. What a great story that is. Um, Margot, I really want to thank you for being here today. I really enjoyed this episode, recording this episode. And like I said, I am going to buy your book for sure and read it because I've always thought to myself, well, how do I encourage some of my grandchildren even to, yeah, thank you for showing that to, I mean, like you said, you can't really determine what their future is. They have to figure that out. But if there was somebody in my world, and the little ones that want to become an entrepreneur like me, because I am an entrepreneur, I'd really like to get better at showing them support. So thank you so much, Margot, and enjoy that beautiful weather in Utah. Oh my God, it's brutal over here.
Thanks, Monica. This was fun.